Please take your seats, everyone. The West Hollywood City Council acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh people. I will now call this meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. And before I do that, the City Clerk, do you have an announcement?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share for those of you watching at home that there is a technical issue that is impacting captions for tonight's meeting broadcast. This may affect viewers tuning in on Spectrum Channel 10 and the city website video link at www.weho.org/WehoTV. Users of most smart TVs may turn on auto-generated captions using their TV menu settings, and all viewers can access auto-generated captions on YouTube by viewing the meeting broadcast through the city's WehoTV YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/WehoTV and tapping the CC button on the lower right side of the video frame. Thank you for understanding as we work to restore this service.
Thank you, City Clerk. Will David Nash please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Put your right hand on your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Byers.
Present.
Councilmember Heilman.
Here.
Councilmember Meister.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson.
Here.
Mayor Schein.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now move to approval of the agenda. Madam City Clerk, are there any changes from staff this evening?
No, Mayor, there are no changes from staff.
Okay. Do my colleagues have any changes?
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
That we move 6A, 6B, 6C to consent calendar.
6A, 6B, 6C to consent calendar. Are there any objections to that? No? Okay. Any other changes from my colleagues? Sure. Okay. Councilmember Heilman.
I'm wondering if we can combine public hearings 3A through 3G with the exception of 3C, because I believe that there are some legal requirements for that one. These are standard public hearings that we do on an annual basis, and I don't believe we typically have many speakers or any speakers at all. So
I think aside from 3C, which is a Prop 213 requirement, that should be okay. We'll just indicate in the record that we're opening, we're closing. I do not have any individuals signed up to speak currently for any of those items, and if the city attorney concurs, I think we're fine.
Okay. Great.
I'd also like to request that we discuss item 2U or that it be brought back at another meeting. I think that's, I think additional funding is needed for those services, so I'd like to have that conversation. But I'll give staff the option of whether they want to wait or whether they can bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay, or we can also pull it off consent and discuss it if there's a certain funding you're looking at?
Well,
or did staff want different funding?
Well, I think we need more funding, but I'll pull it from consent, and if we need to continue it to the next hearing, I'll leave that to the discretion of the city manager.
Okay.
May I try one?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if we can move 5O to the consent, and that's the 2023-2024 budget discussion.
I have comments on it.
You have comments on the budget?
Yes.
Great. What about 5A, the WeHo Cares team agreements?
I have comments on that too,
Great.
sorry.
So what about 5C? That's the Special Council Initiatives Programming. It's the Special Council Programs and Initiatives and Events, the item that was brought back. Technically, it's your turn item.
I don't have, I have a question about this, but, yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Great, so we are moving 6A, co-sponsorship of Out Loud Sports Festival, to consent. 6B, sponsorship of a community town hall forum with Assemblymember Rick Chavez Zibur, to consent. 6C, co-sponsorship of shopqueer.co and Way Out's pop-up book fairs, to consent. We are combining 3A, 3B, 3D, 3E, and 3G into one hearing, on hearing 3C separately. And we are taking 2U off consent.
And Mayor, can I note my recusal on item 2BB, the portion involving Symblaze?
Noted, thank you, council member.
Yes, and Mayor, I'd like to also note my abstention on that item. Symblaze worked on my campaign, so I would like to not vote on that for anything for a year.
Okay.
Thank you.
If we have no other changes, is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar? Or I'm sorry, the approval of the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to adjournment motions, and I will start the adjournment this evening. This past week, Esther Baum passed away at the age of 97 years old. Esther was named one of U.S. Representative Adam Schiff's 15 Women of the Year in 2020, and was my appointee to the Senior Advisory Board since I have served in the city of West Hollywood, and a dear friend. Esther was born and raised in Los Angeles and has called West Hollywood home for over 30 years. Upon graduating from high school, Esther attended college and majored in accounting. With an abundance of talent and skill, Esther had a successful career spanning across decades. She worked for public accounting firms and as an accountant for several businesses, including a garment manufacturer, women's sportwear shop, a beauty salon chain, and an oral surgery practice. She retired in 2017. While Esther had a successful career, she never lost sight of the importance of volunteering and giving back to the community. Esther volunteered at a cancer center in Santa Monica where she reconstructed the files and payroll records after the building caught on fire. She also volunteered at Project Angel Food, the Maple Counseling Center in Beverly Hills, and AARP, where she did tax preparation for senior citizens. Esther was a dynamic force in the community. She also served as a neighborhood watch block captain and enjoyed hosting national night out gatherings for almost 3 decades. She made it a tradition to take all the remaining food to serve to the homeless. Esther was also a longtime and valued member of Congregation Cola Mead. I'll never forget one of my first council meetings that I attended after being appointed to the Lesbian Gay Advisory Board. Esther was sitting right up here, super feisty, and she went up to the dais and was advocating for the cost of ambiance to be lowered and for transportation for our seniors to be extended to weekends and not just certain times during the week. And she made the most incredible deviled eggs I have ever had. A very, very giving, lovely soul. And she told me the story of her cat that she loved, that she would play piano and the cat would jump up next to her and she would give the cat a biscuit and she would have a coffee. And I thought it was the most incredible story. She was an incredible woman and a wonderful member of our community. She was preceded in death by her late husband, Robert, and is survived by one daughter who followed in Esther's footsteps and is an accountant. The entire West Hollywood community has benefited immensely from Esther's generosity and invaluable contributions. She was like family to many people in our West Hollywood community and will be missed by us all. And I was also told she was one of the first members and one of the longest members of the Senior Advisory Board. A public memorial service will be held on Sunday, July 9th at 3:30 p.m. at Congregation Kol Ami, located at 1200 North La Brea Avenue. The next adjournment that I have is for John O'Neill. On May 22nd, John O'Neill, Vice President of the West Hollywood Recovery Center and Log Cabin Board of Directors, passed away at the age of 61 years old, surrounded by family and close friends, following an aggressive cancer diagnosis. John O'Neill lived and worked in West Hollywood for many years. Earlier this year, he celebrated 35 years of sobriety. John will truly be missed by so many. He was an inspiration and touched many lives in the West Hollywood community. Are there other adjournments for my colleagues? Councilmember Meister.
Thank you, Mayor. The first is Carol Higgins Clark. Carol Higgins Clark was a West Hollywood resident. She passed on June 12th of a rare appendix cancer that affects 1 in a million people. Carol was a New York Times best-selling author, an actress, and a philanthropist. She was also a major donor to Project Angel Food and treasured friend and neighbor of Richard Ayoub. Our deepest sympathy to Carol's family, neighbors, and friends. I also would like to adjourn tonight in memory of Joshua Kaufman. Joshua Kaufman passed away on June 6th. According to his son-in-law, California State Senator Henry Stern, Joshua was a survivor of Dachau, died just as he lived, happy. The humility, levity, and victimlessness that buoyed him through unthinkable darkness and everyday struggle will survive in us. My condolences go out to Senator Stern and his family during this difficult time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other adjournments? Councilmember Byers, do you have any? No other adjournments from my other colleagues? Okay. We have one presentation this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson, would you like to introduce your presentation?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm so happy to have the Clean Power Alliance representatives here. Ted, thank you for coming all the way from downtown Los Angeles. It's great to serve you with that ability now when we have to go to downtown LA to see you. So thank you for this. Clean Power Alliance celebrated their 50th, a very big anniversary, to say the least. And it's amazing with the work that they're doing. So we have a proclamation to celebrate you all. So whereas Clean Power Alliance, formerly known as the Los Angeles Choice Energy, is a community choice aggregator and not-for-profit entity formed through a joint powers authority made up of participating agencies, and whereas in 2017, the City of West Hollywood joined CPA, which includes more than 30 member jurisdictions in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, and whereas the locally controlled electricity provider in Southern California, CPA believes in a clean energy future that is local, where communities are empowered and customers are given a choice about a source of their energy. And whereas CPA purchases clean and renewable electricity and offers 100% renewable energy and the opportunity to support building a cleaner future be an environmental champion, and lead the way for a greener future. And whereas CPA offers various scholarships and most recently initiated a Voyager Scholarship, which provides financial aid to students enrolled in energy-driven career pathways, such as electric vehicles and advanced transportation technology, energy and environmental science, and alternative energy. And whereas taking responsibility for the environment is one of West Hollywood's core values, and as an established leader in sustainability, the City of West Hollywood values our partnership with CPA to support the city's efforts in reducing its contribution to global climate change. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that we recognize CPA on their memorable occasion of their 5th anniversary. I added a 0, but you'll get there eventually. And honor CPA for providing a greener, renewable electricity option and its commitment to building a cleaner future for West Hollywood and cities throughout Southern California. And I would like to invite Ted and Dahlia from CPA up here to come up to the dais and accept this proclamation, if my colleagues want to come with me.
So thank you very much for the proclamation. It's been a little longer than 5 years because West Hollywood was one of the first cities to join then LACE, now Clean Power Alliance, back in late 2017, one of the first half dozen of our now 35 cities. So I want to thank you for that. Highlight a couple of things of interest in West Hollywood. As you probably know, your preferred energy option for your residents is 100% renewable energy, and through that, we have effectively zeroed out all carbon emissions related to electricity here in West Hollywood over the past 5 years, and so that's super exciting. We have brought money-saving options in rates to West Hollywood and to all of our customers across LA and Ventura counties. But what that means is today, West Hollywood residents, ratepayers, customers of ours, have a choice of 3 rates, all of which, from the 100% renewable energy down to our cheapest tier, lean power, all of those rates are cheaper than what someone can get comparatively from Southern California Edison. So across the board, we're saving folks money and providing those options. And the last thing I'll note is that as we've grown, gotten more established, built up some reserves, starting to be able to spend more money out in the communities, we're establishing more programs. One that I wanted to note particularly for this summer, specifically designed for renters and folks who live in multifamily housing who often can't install advanced technologies because they have landlord or whatever, called Power Saver Home, which will send people text messages for the right time of day to save energy, and they will get paid for that. So just a way that we're trying to bring all folks into this clean energy economy. And that really is a result of what I think has been West Hollywood's leadership, as in so many areas on regional boards, regional opportunities, you all have shown great leadership. And you had wonderful representation on our board more recently, and now with Mayor Pro Tem Erickson and Councilmember Byers also on our board now, that just continues. So thank you for sending them our way.
Thank you.
And we'll get that going. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to public comment for this evening, the first public comment period. The City Council values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, City Council cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. The public comment period is limited to 20 minutes with 90 seconds this evening allotted for each speaker. This public comment period is to address the City Council on consent calendar items or items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Another period is also reserved for general comment later in the meeting for those that could not be heard at this time. Public hearing testimony will only be taken at the time of the public hearing. If you signed up to speak on both consent calendar items and general public comment as well as an item that was moved to the consent calendar, you may take this public comment period to speak on the consent calendar items. You may also sign up to speak during the second public comment period for your general public comment. Madam City Clerk, who is our first speaker?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I move to the speakers, I just want to say we have a very heavy agenda tonight. We are going to be reducing the public comment to 90 seconds. Legally, we have to hear consent calendar items. Anyone who doesn't get to speak in the first 20 minutes, as indicated on the agenda, will be moved to the second public comment period. So I will begin with our first speaker this evening, Steve Martin, for item 2J. Jay.
Good evening, Council. Steve Martin, West Hollywood. I want to thank you for your support of 2JJ, the Substance Abuse Town Hall. West Hollywood's always been in the forefront and of these issues, particularly back in the day when there was no programs at all for substance abuse, particularly methamphetamine. So I do appreciate that. I did have the opportunity weekend before last to attend the Drag Story Hour in West Hollywood Park, and I want to say the library. It was a really joyous event. About 60 people were there, a lot of kids. It wasn't political. Amber was the reader. She was fabulous. Everyone just had a good time, and it was a lot of diverse families coming together and just having a good time. There was nothing political or ideological about it. And that was in marked difference than the April event that had demonstrators and counter demonstrators there. And I saw one of the demonstrators was assaulted by a counter demonstrator, and it's very frustrating because West Hollywood has always been a safe place to exercise people's First Amendment rights. And it's frustrating now because it seems that there's an effort to demonize the sheriff's department for arresting a person who assaulted somebody just because they were exercising their First Amendment rights. And I just wanted people to know that the community supports the sheriff, community supports First Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gerard Wright, to be followed by Darwin Rodriguez.
It took me by surprise. Good evening, honorable council members. Gerard Wright, Government Affairs Director with the Greater LA Realtors, in support of item 2, and thanking Councilmember Heilman for this forward-thinking idea. I mean, supporting the small business community and the business community is important for all of the community because it provides the jobs, provides the safety, talks about the other issues that are important to a thriving city like West Hollywood, because it is home. It is home to so many people and so much diversity in the city. This is an important forward-thinking idea that we would love to partner with you on, figure out other opportunities to help out. I know there's an issue on homelessness that, for example, and I think we covered it at another meeting, you know, for the business community and other local cities are not getting their fair share of Measure H dollars, and this might be an opportunity to also address this in this conversation because, you know, taking care of the homeless also relates to community safety, community value, the whole 9 yards. So this is wonderful to talk about, wonderful to speak on, and I'd love to be part of that conversation. So I will not take the full 90 seconds and say thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. Our next speaker is Darwin Rodriguez, to be followed by Felicia Hilario.
Hi, my name is Darwin Rodriguez. I'm a program manager at the Institute for Public Strategies. We run the West Hollywood Project. We focus on substance use prevention. So I'm here today asking for the use of city council chambers as well as support for a town hall on fentanyl, methamphetamine, and xylazine. So we've gotten some partnership with the County of Los Angeles, specifically Dr. Sid Puri, who's the Associate Medical Director for Prevention in the Substance Abuse Prevention and Control Division of LA County's Department of Public Health. We've also gotten support from a staff member who will be speaking at the event from the County Department of Health Services, specifically from their Harm Reduction Division. So, you know, this promises to be a really interactive event for anyone in the West Hollywood community to learn about fentanyl, methamphetamine, and xylazine, where we'll also provide resources and education and training so that people are armed with the resources and education that they need to keep themselves and their community safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Darwin. Our next speaker is Felicia Hilario, to be followed by Brian Risley.
Good evening. Good evening. I am a proud resident of West Hollywood and a member of the Writers Guild. I've been a member for six years. Our guild includes 11,500 members, and we have been on strike since May 2nd. We are fighting for issues that this city council has also fought for, which is sustainable jobs, working conditions, and fair compensation for the content we create, most importantly on the streaming platforms that we all enjoy so much. We know this fight has broader implications for the entertainment industry, and we are setting a path for the actors, the trucks, the crew, and even the janitors. This is what we're trying to do. AI can regurgitate information and perhaps even a story, but it cannot understand the nuance of human emotion, of love, or of loss. And that is what we can do as humans, and that is what we wish to bring to you. Because as one of the writers said, AI has never had childhood trauma. So we thank Councilman Byers and the entire City Council for standing with the writers and bringing forward this resolution. We'll continue to picket for as long as we can, and we thank the incredible solidarity of this community for joining us on the lines. We are one day longer and one day stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Our next speaker is Brian Risley, to be followed. Brian Risley.
Good evening, City Council members. So just to follow up on my partner, Darwin Rodriguez, I just wanted to bring to attention a public health alert that was issued by LA County recently, and this is on xylazine as an illicit drug that's increasing the risk for overdose. I don't know how many are aware that xylazine is now showing up in street drugs, in methamphetamine, and all the pressed pills, in cocaine, and any powdered substance. It's a cheaply produced depressant, and unfortunately, if you're administering a Narcan dose, let's say intranasally for fentanyl, if someone also has xylazine in their drug, they will not respond to Narcan. So the fentanyl test strips are great, Narcan is great, but with the increasing presence of xylazine, we have a new real problem with street drugs. So these are things we will address in this town hall, and so I really appreciate that that you've confirmed and consented to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Before we move to general public comment, I do have a citizen position slip in support of item 200 from Alberto Munoz. David Nash, you are our next speaker, to be followed by Rick Watts.
Thank you. David Nash, West Hollywood resident. I owe each and every one of you a heartfelt thanks on the council. A few weeks ago, I sent an email out kind of waving a red flag of concern about a neighbor who had become suddenly and severely disabled and whose dwelling was not equipped with grab bars, fold-down seat in the bathtub, handheld shower, the basics that someone with a severe disability would need to function at home. Every one of you responded to my email on a Sunday afternoon. I was impressed that you're all working 7 days a week, and I thank you all for your response. Appropriate staff at the city followed up on the issues the week after, and at least 2 meetings were set up between management, our on-site social worker, and city staff, so that hopefully in the future, when people have a sudden and catastrophic dip in their health, things can be brought in that are needed in a more timely manner. And sadly, I just want to say that we do need to have a plan beyond being safe at home to look at catastrophic issues.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rick Watts, to be followed by Lucian Tudor.
Good evening. Thank you, Council. Rick Watts, City of West Hollywood. Just following on comments on our friend and neighbor Esther Baum. I'm sure there are many people in the audience and who may be viewing this tonight that may not have been particularly familiar with Esther, but at her advanced age, not surprisingly, Esther was also disabled. It was not at all uncommon to see Esther, nonetheless, at council meetings on her walker. I was occasionally give her rides home after council, or down here for that matter, and despite her age and her disability, as was noted, she nonetheless still was a block captain for our neighborhood watch, which, thanks in no small part to Esther, has endured these 30 years. Esther understood very much through her work with the disabled community and Project Angel Food and so forth, that all of these struggles, whether for seniors or persons with disabilities, public safety, housing, in the words of Cleve Jones, it's one struggle, one fight. This is all related. And so we all owe a deep debt of gratitude for Esther Baum. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Our next speaker is Lucian Tudor, to be followed by Barbara Tenzer.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Unity for 32 years. Since our last time here, we've been harassed was the removal of our outdoor temporary restrooms that serve our temporary outdoor dining. Ironically, for almost 3 years, we have had an application into the planning department seeking an extension for our restrooms. As would be expected of our business to provide for our guests in the city's best interest. Over that time, there was little response. No sense of urgency has been shown, no accountability in addressing your request. At the same time, I want to speak about your superficiality, especially Mayor Sepi Shine, supporting the defund of police movement, which resulted in lack of stability and civic well-being of our city. You reduced the number of deputies in October 2022. To ensure a more appropriate law enforcement, you hire block-by-block security ambassadors. Their presence has been a complete failure. A month ago at La Boheme, there were an armed robbery. Since then, we've been vandalized 5 times. 5 times. This is unacceptable for all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Tudor. Our next speaker is Barbara Tenzer, to be followed by Todd Hallman.
Can I have more than 90 seconds?
No, and we need to limit you to 90 seconds. Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Mayor, I met you in Mandeville Canyon. We talked briefly about Santa Monica. I'm going to talk really fast. My name is Barbara Tenzer. I was asked to come here tonight and advocate for businesses and restaurants because the policies coming from this council are hurting the businesses. Mayor, you said I always put equity and equality for each and every person in the center of my service, and that's exactly what I'll do in Congress. And all of you say that you're fighters for affordability and economic opportunity. I'm sorry to say that each one of you, that this statement does not appear true. It's a bit of an illusion at this point. I don't know who you're listening to, but you're not listening to the businesses. I'm here to talk about 2 issues. One is the ambassadors. We have them in Santa Monica. They don't work. It's been 20 years. Getting rid of the sheriff or reducing the sheriff is not working here. The second thing is the minimum wage. You're very proud of having the highest minimum wage in the U.S. Businesses have cried out to you that the wage is too high, especially in the restaurant business where services are receiving tips. I don't know who's controlling you guys, but in Santa Monica, it's large companies and it's unions, and you need to start listening to the individual people. Please take a deep breath and rethink your positions. Everyone makes mistakes. Please listen to the businesses. And by the way, my family are immigrants too. A lot of them came from Nazi Germany. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Our next speaker is Todd Hallman, to be followed by Anthony Reed DeGenio.
Good evening, Mayor Shine, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson, and council members. My name is Todd Hallman. I am a 35-year West Hollywood resident, the WeHo East Neighborhood Watch Captain, and chair of your Public Safety Commission. I'm here tonight. I have had a couple of sidebar conversations with several of you about my disappointment over what we presented on Juneteenth. Last year, I thought we did a beautiful job. I was a proud queer Black resident to speak at last year's ceremony. This year, to say it paled in comparison is nothing. Councilmember Meister, thank you for being there. You were the only one there from council. I know other council members had other commitments. You know, David Wilson, city manager, I would have loved to have seen you. To say we did a terrible job is an understatement. I was insulted, I was embarrassed, and I was offended. However, moving forward, I think we can learn and do better. So I would like to propose that next year, council enacts a host committee that can work in conjunction with staff to help plan this event. We need more people of color involved. This is important to me. I want this to be a success, and I hope you consider my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Mr. DeGenio will be our last speaker. Everyone else will be moved to the second public comment period.
Hi, good evening, City Council, Mrs. Mayor. My name is Anthony DeGenio. I've been a resident of West Hollywood since 1994. Many years ago, I gave a considerable donation to Sal Guerrero to his Veterans Memorial. I've always enjoyed volunteering, such as reading to the children at our library, building homes for the homeless, or feeding them, which I do every day, including the police and fire. A few years ago, I came up with an idea to have a hot dog cart company. I presented it to you, and you approved. The American dream once again came true, and I thank you dearly. I come here before you today to ask politely for your consideration to allow me to participate in special events. I know food vendors in the past have been stigmatized due to people like the Bacon Wrap Bandits, who cook raw bacon on rusty trays, serving up some hot botulism for only $10. But when you're legal in the real world, it's a $30,000 to $50,000 investment, which the majority of restaurateurs aren't able to produce, and that's why I'm the only one. Obtaining a health department health permit is very difficult. Having a 5-star rating on Yelp is proof that I am a smooth operator, and I think we should all be proud. I believe I represent the city well, diffusing fights, returning wallets, cell phones, sobering them up, getting them home safely, If you visit my Instagram, you'll see a level of excitement and joy through our customer experience that not only encourages them to come back and again, with hundreds asking me, why don't you participate in special events, bringing that to my superior's attention. There's no justification, only that we need to change the law. There's no reasoning behind it, only that we need to change the law. So it hurts when I'm not able to participate, when others sneak in. Not only does it feel discriminatory, but emotionally and financially devastating. I do believe the city wants the best for all of us, and it may be just an oversight. So please consider.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor, that was 20 minutes.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson has a question for.
Thank you. David, I understand one of the public commenters talked about a permit in process for 3+ years. This is the first time I'm hearing about, second actually, I think someone tweeted me, but Oscar, Jackie, and John Kehoe are here, so could they go talk to Lucien, and could you provide us a report back? Not anytime soon, because I'm sure you won't be able to get it that soon, but later on in the meeting about what's going on with their restroom or whatever is going on, so we could understand the facts.
Yeah, we can provide a full report later, but staff has been working with Laboam. The restrooms wasn't part of their original out zone, so staff is working with them on the permit process, and it's taking longer than what the business would like. But we will continue to work with them, and we'll provide the council an update. Excuse me. Just a few other comments related to Juneteenth. The Social Justice Task Force, Social Justice Advisory Board will be part of planning Juneteenth in the future. The advisory board hasn't been established yet, and so they weren't part of that this year, but I do think staff did a great job of planning the event, but we'll work with the Social Justice Task Force on promoting it and other ideas for the event in the future. I think that was all for the comments. Just a few announcements. The July Human Services Commission meeting will feature a training from Being Alive on how and when to administer Narcan. Community members are invited to attend the meeting and receive training Tuesday, July 11th at 6 p.m. in Plummer Park, rooms 5 and 6. The city invites community members to participate in one of 2 meetings on updating the city's hazard mitigation plan. That will be in person on Wednesday, June 28th at 6 p.m. in the ARC, or Thursday, July 13th virtually. For more information, please contact the Community Safety Department or email safety@weho.org. And then lastly, the Sheriff Station will be hosting a catalytic converter etching event on Saturday, July 8th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. located at the PDC Red Building. For questions, please contact the city's Community Safety Department at safety@weho.org. And that concludes my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes.
I have 2 questions of the city manager.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So, they have to do with the consent calendar. Item 2Z, which is the school crossing guards, it said in the staff report that the number of crossing guards at WeHo Elementary went from 1 to 3 during the pandemic because of social distancing, and the item is for approval of 3 crossing guards. So I just didn't understand if we're out of the pandemic, if it was necessary to have 3, or maybe we could try 2, just something to think about there, and maybe you can shed some light on that. And then item 2FF, it's the memo of agreement on the Bologna Creek watershed. I just wanted to ask you if that outcome was a good outcome. I remember when this came before us, I think it was 2015 or 2016, and it was a very, very large sum of money that they were talking about. It seems to me that this is a reasonable amount of money, but I kind of want to get your take on it. Thank you.
Can provide updates on both of those. We'll provide updates later on both of those items.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, moving on to the fiscal impact on consent calendar. What is the fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar?
Thank you, Mayor. The fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar, with the addition of items 6A, 6B, and 6C, and the removal of item 2U, is $8,300,590 in expenditures, $1,011,224 in revenue, and $1,100 in waived fees. We have a motion to adopt the consent calendar. The consent calendar passes.
Thank you. We are going to move to 3C first.
Actually, Mayor, I have to clarify for the record. 3A is our Prop 218 hearing. So we'll read from our script that indicates 3C, and then we'll hear 3B, 3C, 3D, 3E, 3F, 3G. Is that what combined?
I think you said 3C. We're going to do 3A first.
3A first,
Okay.
correct.
That's the one, that's the Prop 218 hearing.
Yeah,
And then we'll do
it's
the
a
rest
little
combined.
more detailed.
So we'll do 3A first, and then 3C, and then the combined ones?
So in your red folder with the scripts,
Yes.
the one that indicates 3C is 3A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the.
Thank you for the
column.
clarification.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, we will now hear public hearing item 3A, a resolution of the City Council of the City of West Hollywood adopting increases to sewer service charges. The public hearing is now open. Madam City Clerk, how was this hearing noticed?
So first, the city attorney has to read the Prop 218 language into the record.
Okay.
I'll answer that question this time. This public hearing was set in compliance with Proposition 218. The city mailed a notice of this public hearing to every record owner whose property is subject to the imposition of the proposed sewer charges, since sewer charges are placed on the property tax roll for collection. The date and time of this hearing is not less than 45 days after the city mailed the notice. The purpose of the public hearing is for the City Council to hear all oral testimony and consider all written protests concerning the proposed rate increase. It is also held to determine whether there is a majority protest to the proposed charges and whether to proceed with the adoption of the charges. Property owners are not required to provide oral testimony at today's hearing. If they wish, they may submit a written protest directly to the city clerk indicating their opposition to the proposed rate increase. In order for their protest to be counted, they must submit a written protest prior to the close of the hearing. The public hearing will be closed after the City Council has heard and considered oral testimony. Oral comments today are not counted as written protests. If written protests against the proposed rate increases are presented by a majority of the owners of the identified parcels upon which the charge will be imposed, the City Council may not impose the rate increase. If there is no majority protest, the City Council may impose the rate increase. Pursuant to state law governing Prop 218 and determining whether a majority protest exists, only one protest per parcel may be counted.
Thank you. So did we get how this hearing was noticed? Okay. Will the staff representative please introduce yourself and present the staff report?
Good evening, I'm John Gilmore, city engineer for the city. This item 3A is regarding the sewer service charges. The city owns, operates, and maintains a sewer system to the public. This obviously costs money. It is paid for by collecting a fee from every property on their annual property tax bill. Every year, the fee is adjusted for inflation to keep up with rising costs. The city, per state law requirements, conducts the approval process, and we do it in multi-year increments. It's now time for another approval that will carry us forward through 2027. And per state law, the ballots were sent out, and we received 103 protest ballots out of 9,826, which represents 1%. So since this is less than the majority, council can proceed with the adoption of the new rates.
Do my colleagues have any questions for staff?
If there are no public speakers, I would move that we close the public hearing and adopt.
There are no public speakers, and as John indicated, we only received 103 protest ballots as of 6:00 p.m.
Okay. I'll second that motion. Or somebody else did it. Great. We will now move to the combined hearing for 3B, 3D, 3B,
3C.
3C. So 3C is not 3A. That's what you said earlier.
Right. So 3B, 3C, 3D, and then we'll switch staff members for 3E, 3F, and 3G.
Got it. Okay. So 3B, 3P, 3C, and 3D. Collection of sewer charges on tax roll for fiscal year 2023. Public hearing on rate increases to sewer service charges, placement of delinquent solid waste fees on the property tax bill of property owners. The public hearing is now open. How is this hearing noticed?
All hearings were noticed as required by law, and for these particular ones, we actually do the posting 30 days in advance, and it stays up for 2 consecutive meetings.
Thank you. Will the staff representative please introduce yourself and present the staff report?
Good evening again, John Gilmore, City Engineer. So the 3 hearings here before us. The first one, collection of sewer charges on tax roll. This is what we just heard, and now we will formally put it on the tax roll. So it's the increases, and this is the movement to now put it on the tax bill. The next one, 3C, is the solid waste rates. So the city has a contract with Athens for solid waste and recycling services. Most recent amendment was passed last year. Terms go to 2037. Per that contract, Athens rates will increase by inflation each year. Also, the city has a portion of the fee that will also increase by inflation. There's a second charge for Athens that also increases each year per contract based on the big organics law that passed, and we negotiated that contract last year. So the cost of the program is collected again based on the type of property. So residential's 1 through 4 units, they will pay everything on the tax bill. Residential 5+ will pay Athens directly, the Athens bill, and pay the city portion on the tax bill. And commercial pays Athens directly. So this is the public hearing where council will approve those increases that are part of the contract for placement on the tax bill. The third hearing is the delinquent solid waste. So again, with Athens here, part of the contract stipulations prevent Athens from stopping service to multifamily so that we protect the tenants in case that the owner does not pay. And so every year there's a couple where the bills go delinquent, and so part of our provisions allow for that delinquency to be put on the tax roll where it has success in being paid. And so the item before you here is this year's list of delinquencies. As of today, we have only 11 delinquencies. So that's the memo that you received, the most current list that would then be placed on the tax roll. And that concludes the 3.
Do my colleagues have any questions for staff at all? No. Are there any public speakers?
We have no public speakers for any of these items.
Okay. Since there's no public speakers, shall we move these items?
Yeah, I'll ask Melissa. We took them all together, but if it's easier for us to move these 3 items now and wait for the staff report on the others, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll move these 3 Lauren, should I read the title of the resolutions into the record, or do you think we're okay?
I think it's okay. They're posted on the agenda.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. And items 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D all passed 5-0. So now we will move to 3E, 3F, and 3G, which have to do with the city's business improvement districts.
Wonderful. The public hearing is now open. Madam City Clerk, how was this hearing noticed?
As required by law.
Will the staff representative please introduce yourself and present the staff reports, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Taylor Coyne. I'm the Business Development Manager, joined by Laura Byrie, our Director of Economic Development. We're presenting 3E, 3F, and 3G. 3E and 3F are both the reestablishments of our business-based bids. So we are reestablishing the design district and the Sunset Strip bid. There are no changes to the boundaries or the assessments for this year. 3G is regarding the Santa Monica Boulevard Maintenance District. That's our property-based bid that benefits all of the property owners along Santa Monica. They pay into a bid primarily for our holiday lights. All three of these also include amendment to the existing contracts. 3G for Decker Light to do the holiday lights for this coming fiscal year, amending the contract to extend for 1 year and not to exceed amount. For both business bids, include amendments to our contract with the Chamber of Commerce so they can administer the bids for 1 additional year. And we are here to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff at all, for my colleagues? Councilmember Heilman.
Mayor, not a question, just a comment. The Sunset Strip bid, the materials that you submitted to us, it showed them promoting Summer on Sunset by posting things on light poles, which we don't allow. So we might want to talk to them about that. And then also, I just hope in the upcoming year there'll be more emphasis on music and the music venues on Sunset, because that's a very important part of our heritage here in West Hollywood. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks. On page 22 in 3F, the Sunset Strip bid talks about they want to get back to producing an event for the Sunset Strip. And that kind of piggybacks off of what Councilmember Hammond said. I don't want to talk about the Sunset Strip Music Festival, but I know that did help with a lot of the clubs and the famous places up on the Sunset Strip. So I didn't know if we had any inkling of what they are thinking, if it's too early to tell, but if those things could be brought to us earlier so we could help with any fee waivers or anything like that that we could do as a city, because I do agree that I think that that is a good thing that they're doing, and I think to have that rejuvenation over there with them will help. If they've told you what they're doing, you can tell us, but by the look on your face, I'm guessing that answer is no.
They're still in the planning phases, but we can report that message back and circle back so they know it. Not as part of their annual event, but I will say that they are working or in collaboration with the Doors event, their annual, that festivities for next year, again, whether or not it's combined, but we will report back and share your messages.
I believe we have 2 speakers for this item.
We do, and they're both in Zoom. So we will have, I believe Genevieve signed up to speak on all 3 items, so she'll have to combine it. And 2 minutes, 2 minutes, Janet.
So our first speaker this evening on this item is Genevieve Morrill. Genevieve, please press *6 to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. Genevieve Morrill, President and CEO of the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for hearing this item every year. We're very excited. The design district certainly has activated much quicker, and we are doing mixers and events, and we're gearing up for our 75th anniversary. Sunset Strip, as Taylor said, we're working on our Doors exhibit, so we're looking at locations for that next year. which will be incredible, and looking at kind of hand-painted doors in different configuration, door being symbolic of different, could be a physical door or a door of some other place. And we're going to look at that around the city, similar to like we had for Guitar Town. We are working on the planning for Legends of Sunset to get to you, and as well as we're looking at some sort of pub crawl. So, Councilmember Erickson and Heilman, thank you so, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson and Heilman, thank you so much for your suggestions. Councilmember Heilman, I don't know if I wrote that in the annual report, but I think we only posted for a photo op on the polls. I don't think we actually posted on any of the polls, the flyers. It was just for a photo that we did, so apologies for that. But yeah, we are looking to activate the strip a lot more. We tried the rink. It was a very hot summer. And we're kind of going to revisit that and look at something more music related, as Councilmember Howman mentioned. So we thank you again for all your support, and we look forward to seeing you at many of our programs and events.
Thank you, Genevieve. Our next speaker on these items is Greg Rand. Greg, you will have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Greg, go ahead. Greg, please press *6 to unmute yourself. There you go. Mayor, he may be having some audio issues, so I don't know if you want to.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then let's go ahead and move forward. Are there any deliberations with my colleagues for this? I see we have a motion to adopt by Councilmember Heilman and seconded by Councilmember Erickson. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, the public testimony portion of the public hearing is now closed before we do the vote officially.
That was part of the motion.
It was part of the motion.
Part of the motion.
We closed the public hearing.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Now we will move on to public hearing item 3H, request to permit modification of an existing tall wall at 9201 Sunset Boulevard. The public hearing is now open. Are there any disclosures from council members? No?
I met with the applicant and discussed items in the staff report and visited the site.
Okay. Councilmember Heilman, do you have any disclosures?
I also had a meeting with the applicant on Zoom.
Okay.
I met with the applicant on Zoom as well, and I visited the site. Thanks.
Okay. I don't have any disclosures. Okay. So, Madam City Clerk, how was this hearing noticed?
As required by law. And Mayor, we're going to have to conduct this via Zoom because Jennifer Davis, the planner for this item, will be on Zoom. So we'll be doing the entire item through Zoom.
Okay.
Staff's just getting the presentation ready. Olivia, do you mind coming and helping? Thank you.
Should we take a break while we get this set up?
Sure.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 7:15. Or wait, 7:12. Please return to your seats. We will be resuming our meeting. Madam City Clerk, are we ready to go to the Zoom
Staff is ready to
presentation?
rock and roll. They're
Excellent.
in Zoom and have it up.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and start.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's Brian League with Property Development. With me, I have Jennifer Alkire and John Kehoe with our Planning Division. The item you have before you tonight is a review of a conditional use permit for a modified tall wall, a zoning map amendment to place the property in a development agreement overlay zone, and a development agreement which details the approvals and vested rights of the project. The Planning Commission at their April 20th hearing recommended approval to the City Council with respect to the project's requested entitlements and made two requests for the City Council to consider. First being, is the proposed public benefit sufficient? And second, to consider the ability to dim the lights which downlight the tall wall. Staff has included the second item, the condition of dimming the lights on the tall wall, as a condition of the approval. For the context, the project is located on the north side of Sunset at the intersection of Doheny Road, just west of Corey Avenue. The current use of the building is an existing 9-story medical office tower with an existing tall wall granted by a conditional use permit from 2003. The existing tall wall is just over 5,000 square feet. Tall walls are distinguished from billboards and they are larger, not internally lit, less readable at night, and have a longer run for content. Tall walls can be placed on solid walls or facades with window curtain walls. Solid walls read better, have a higher resolution. Window curtain walls are perforated wraps which allow visibility from the inside and the interior, but greatly reduce the visibility of the tall wall at night. Under the current policy, tall walls have a minimum size of 5,000 square feet and no maximum size. The proposed tall wall measures 9,150 square feet and wraps the building. The east facade, which is a solid facade, will be reduced by 2,000 square feet. And the south facade, which will now include 6,000 square feet over the first 3 window bays. Part of the size on this facade was dictated by the column width between the window bays. The policy encourages tall walls to wrap building corners to create visual interests and limits the advertising to one campaign. The request for the modification came from the applicant due to an obstruction caused by a new digital billboard at 9157 Sunset. The billboard policy allows for modification to existing tall walls through a requested amendment. And here's a couple images I just want to share. The image, this is the westbound from Sunset at 300 feet from the existing tall wall and showing the impact of that 9157 digital board. Here's an image of the existing tall wall with its dimensions. It's somewhat of a portrait orientation. The proposed tall wall wraps, as I said, it wraps the building, and there is some symmetry between the wrap. The proposed tall wall, it's shorter. It's probably 20 feet shorter. It's higher up on the building, and of course, it's on the first three window bays on Sunset. I wanted to just go over the site plan quickly. The blue is the existing tall wall, and what this shows is there's 3 downlights on the existing tall wall. The proposed tall wall that wraps the red portion has 4 downlights, and the existing tall wall, a downlight has been removed, and those downlights will be now required to be dimmable. There's an existing view from eastbound showing the 9157 and the tall wall. An existing view from westbound into the city. And now for community benefits, the current tall wall provides no community financial benefit to the city. What we're proposing in this development agreement is approximately $200,000 per year, and it's broken down into a public benefit payment, an extraordinary public benefit payment, public realm enhancement payment for improvements on Sunset, and finally a 1% to the arts payment, which is $200,000 per year. And these are the public benefits that we're proposing, which are would be new to the project, new to the billboard. And with that, that's staff's presentation. And our recommendation is to adopt the resolution ordinance approving the conditional use permit, the zoning permit amendment, and the development agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions for staff? Councilmember Meister.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. So the staff report says that this is an alternative project under the Sunset Billboard policy. How aren't those projects usually include a community meeting and a design review meeting, design review subcommittee meeting?
I'm gonna let John.
So the answer to that is no. This is a slightly different type of project than the ones that we're familiar with that we've been calling alternative projects that have been going to the Planning Commission. Those were all projects that were able to apply through a competition process. And so all of those had digital billboards or some other new billboard aspect. And so those were part of a competition that we set up a special subcommittee of the Planning Commission to review. And depending on the projects, they may not have a neighborhood meeting because the neighborhood meeting requirement is really for a larger construction project. And sometimes these projects are just the signs themselves. This one, however, is a different type of project. The Sunset Specific Plan Arts and Advertising section has a provision that's specific to tall walls. And I'll just read that section. It says, modification to tall walls. Existing tall wall signs may be modified to reallocate existing sign area to change the proportions, orientation, and location of the sign with the approval of a development agreement. So it was anticipated that we might have tall walls that were all on one side of a building wanting to modify it. And so we didn't add any additional neighborhood meeting requirements for that since there's no construction activity associated with this.
When a tall wall was done before we had this policy, a new tall wall, would it have a community meeting? Did it used to have a community meeting?
I don't believe so because they were approved as a CUP, not as a development permit because there's no construction activity. Our neighborhood meetings are really about construction activity.
Okay, and then you mentioned that the policy does account for modification, but is the size of this project is much larger than the original, is that right? Isn't it like 80% larger?
It is much larger. It's 40% larger. I think it goes from 5,000 to 80% larger, you're correct. It's an alternative project by definition.
Right, I understand, but in our policy, alternative projects do get reviewed, even though I understand that it didn't go through the competition because it's under this policy. I'm sorry, I'm throwing around my printed out policy, Sunset policy. We on projects that we've seen more recently under this policy. Typically, we get a 20% revenue share or a minimum annual guaranteed payment, whatever is greater. Why is this fixed?
We addressed, we had a number of discussions with the applicant's team, and we valued the project as we do every billboard project, and we discovered, the fact was from our valuation, it was the delta between the value and its current value was $122,000 in the first year. And we thought about we could escalate the $122,000 like we had the other projects at 3%, or we discussed just going through a flat fee and increasing that flat fee to $200,000 per year, which would entitle the city more funds up front, and it'd be prepaying some of that fee over the life of the 30-year development agreement. I think we did do the math, and $200,000 per year at a flat fee is a greater benefit to the city than an escalation at that delta, at the $122,000 per year.
Okay, and does the tall wall meet the required design standards in the Sunset Billboard policy? For example, do the windows comprise no more than 15% of the image area?
I believe so, if you look at the full building.
I think they're covering more of the windows than what that policy has, and so that's part and parcel of what they're requesting as part of this development agreement, that they cover more of the windows.
Okay, is that in the findings?
I believe so.
Okay, and then you have a 50% threshold for continually occupied. Is that the same policy that we've had for new billboard projects that have come before us?
Yes.
50%?
Yes.
Okay, question for Lauren Langer. Can you confirm that there is language in the development agreement that the applicant acknowledges that views are not protected or may be potentially blocked in the future?
Yes. Section 3.4.5 talks about obstruction in the development agreement, and it says this agreement does not confer upon the owner a right to an unobstructed view of the permitted sign.
And was that in previous language?
That's in every development agreement.
But what about when this wasn't a development agreement, when this was a CUP, was that language in the CUP?
It probably was not included as a standard condition of approval for a CUP many years ago.
Okay, and just one last question. Thank you for indulging me. Did the applicant provide public comment at the hearings that took place for the billboard that they are saying will block their tall wall?
I don't think we remember if they spoke or not.
Okay, because maybe had they spoken up during public hearings, that could have been avoided.
I think they're here, so they could certainly respond to that.
Okay, maybe Jeff can answer that question. Thank you. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Meister. Any other questions from my other colleagues?
Mayor, I did have a question. Just to clarify the financing, with these tall walls, we typically are now using an outside company to value how much it's worth, and then negotiating based on how much the consultant indicates that the tall wall is worth, correct?
Correct, and this is our third tall wall we have a revenue share.
Okay, and some of the ones that we've done previously, as I recall, we've done it with a lower dollar amount with escalation over time, but in this one, the city manager negotiated a higher upfront amount and making it consistent over the time.
Correct.
But according to the consultant's value, we're capturing the full amount of value that would be consistent with the other signs we've negotiated.
Over the life of the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any, does the applicant or the representative wish to address the city council?
Yes, Mayor, we have Jeff Seymour here on behalf of the applicant, Ben Anderson, the architect for the applicant, and Spencer Kallick, who is the attorney representing the applicant. Jeff?
Mayor Shine, members of the council, my name is Jeff Seymour with Seymour Consulting Group. I reside in Westlake Village. First and foremost, we want to thank staff for the input and assistance they've given. This has been a long, long discussion. On behalf of my client, Manny Brothers Real Estate Group, we appreciate your consideration of our request to relocate a portion of our existing east-facing tall wall to the building's front face along Sunset Boulevard. For the record, the tall wall was in operation at the time the Manny Brothers purchased the building back in 2003. Present conditions at the site have negatively impacted the tall wall's viability as a creative sign, as well as causing a substantial loss in revenue. The relocation will no doubt improve the existing conditions at the subject site, providing new opportunities to produce innovative single ad campaigns that integrate both the east face and the south facade at 9201. Relocation will also, for the first time, provide the city an opportunity to receive ongoing revenue as conditioned in the project's development agreement. At this point, Ben Anderson, our architects at Office Untitled, will take the floor for your information. Spencer Kallick at Allen Matkins is available to discuss the development agreement. Chris Steinbacher from Outfront Media is available to discuss the signage operations. And Don Hollingsworth, our lighting consultant from Dark Horse Lightworks, is available to respond to questions. Thank you.
So Ben, before you get started, I just want to share that the applicant's given a total of 5 minutes to present.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ben Anderson with Office Untitled, the designer on this project, resident of Studio City. We know you have a very packed agenda and just wanted to address a couple of specific questions that had arisen around the sign technology for the new area on the south face of the office building. That would be the film that's applied directly to the glass windows and the mullions. The best example that we can give is the signage that is currently placed at the 9000 Sunset building, which I'm trying to pull up here. And wanted to offer you both a daytime view of what this signage technology provides, as well as the nighttime. So during the day, the read is, as you can see, fairly clear. It does not need to be illuminated, and at night, because of the occupants within the primary use of the building for office use, the image is degraded significantly, even with the use of uplighting. I did just want to add one note, John. Thank you for your report, but the lighting is uplighting. It's not downlighting. It's mounted on the building roof and facing up. So this was just a small example of what's currently in place within the city on the Sunset Strip using the same proposed technology. And with that, I'll leave it for questions. Thank you.
Any questions? No. There are no questions. We will now receive comment from any person. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem has a question for the city attorney.
Thank you. Lauren, I just wanted you to correct the record that on the staff presentation it said approve a digital billboard. This is a static billboard. It's a tall wall, correct?
That's correct. It must have been a typo on the PowerPoint presentation.
No worries, just making sure. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask Jeff the question that I asked about
Sure.
if someone... Hi, Jeff.
Council member, how are you?
Did anyone speak up during the public hearings for the other project, the one that is blocking the tall wall? Did anyone from your group speak up? Not at public.
I'm sorry.
Not at Planning Commission and not at City Council?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Well, there has been communication. It's a little tough for me legally to say anything more than that, but there was no discussion. The Mannys did not bring up the 9157 building, either at, or the billboard, either at Planning Commission or City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does the applicant or we will now receive comment from any persons in the audience who wish to speak on this matter. Each person may address the City Council for a maximum of 2 minutes. And if you haven't already, please submit your speaker slip to the City Clerk. Do we have public speakers?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one individual in Zoom who would like to speak.
Thank you.
Our speaker in Zoom on this item is Genevieve Morrill. Genevieve, you will have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Genevieve Morrill, President and CEO for the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I'll be brief. We want to support this tall wall application. With any business, and it is a business, it needs to change and adjust with the times, whether location, size, technology. We have to adjust. Also, I came to discover, you all know we've been working on our centennial coffee table book, and through our research, we discovered that West Hollywood was once again a first. We were the first pre-cityhood to create tall walls. Amazing. So yes, a movie studio reached out to a business owner, I think it was either Playboy or Peterson. I don't have my notes in front of me, but the first tall wall was born in West Hollywood. I think it also should go without saying that these development properties, Manny Brothers, these developers have shown a commitment to the city over the last 2 decades. They haven't just developed properties that went away, and I think that means something in West Hollywood. They've continued to give back to the community, and so also has the entitled design team as well. So we hope you approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. Mayor, that was our only speaker in Zoom.
Thank you. Does the applicant or their representative wish to make any further comments? You can have a maximum of 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Only that we hope you'll support this project.
Thank you. All right, I will now close the public testimony portion of the public hearing, and we will move to council deliberations.
Mayor, I just had one question for staff, and it's sort of a follow-up to Councilmember Meister's question. I thought we had, if not a formal policy, at least an informal one, that we would tend not to approve new signs that block other signs. So I guess my question, I think Lauren was asking, why didn't the applicant object to the new sign? I guess my question is, why was that permitted if it was going to block the existing tall wall?
So I don't think that we thought it was going to block the tall wall. We do require that all applications submit view corridors and that type of thing, so we can try to analyze that. I don't think when our review of it that it was going to cause an impact, but that's our point of view, not the owner's point of view. And it's not a requirement. It's just something that we ask all the applicants to provide because we know this is going to be an issue, and so we try to get ahead of it. But in this one,
great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you so much. John, on page 6 in the staff report, I know we talked about this before, but the piece that is delineated against the advertisement, that is a different color. I know you've prepared condition language. I think if my colleagues accept that, to make sure that that separates. I'm not enthralled by the image kind of breaking there. I understand it would be blocked by the billboard in that way, but as long as that's a condition to separate it from the ad space so that ad space isn't taken on, I support this project. I think it is what it is. When I remember when this billboard came before us a few years ago, I went back and looked at some of those the images that you gave us, and I didn't see it blocking then as well, so I understand where you're coming to us now, but just as long as that's conditioned so it doesn't fall into the continuous piece of the advertisement, I'm happy to support this project and whatever else my colleagues would like to say.
Other colleagues? Any comments? Yeah, Councilmember Meister, go ahead.
I have comments.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted other people to go first since I
Go ahead, and then,
Okay.
yeah.
So I don't feel comfortable supporting this project. I think that the recommendation to permit a relocation of the existing tall wall, the size is not negligible. The tall wall is going from 5,000 feet to over 9,100 square feet, which is an 80% increase. To me, that's not a relocation, it's an extension. And the extension, which wraps around the east side of the building, adds an entirely new face, basically, to the project. And yet there was no community meeting and no review by design review subcommittee. The public benefit may or may not be sufficient, depending on the revenue generated, but without the language that we put in other DAs, which is equal to the greater of 20% revenue share or minimum annual guaranteed payment, we are potentially forfeiting revenue. I also think that the 50% threshold for continually occupied for a building this size seems low. And the fact that the new billboard was approved that obstructs another and that staff is trying to accommodate the existing one, to me demonstrates how approving too many signs will only serve to cannibalize existing signage. One person who wrote in public comment asked why the city is even considering this relocation when views are not protected. This is something we tell residents all the time, that views are not protected, and I thought that was a good question. If we do care about views, then it needs to apply to everything. And also, if we do care about views, then I don't understand why we're allowing an expert panel to review billboard designs in a vacuum. Shouldn't they be looking at each proposed project in the context of its surroundings? That's why I'm a little disappointed that the applicant did not go to these other public hearings to state their concerns. And I think that by not participating in the public hearing process that we have in the city, it's like giving special treatment. I also think that this is a dangerous precedent. I think it's saying your views are protected and is only going to lead to more requests and probably lawsuits. Again, an 80% increase in size, not a relocation, but in fact an additional face, no community input, no design review, a low occupy threshold, and a fixed dollar public benefit. I think it's a bad deal for the city, and it's not a good deal for the public. Thank you.
Councilmember Byers.
Thank you. I noticed some community engagement comments as part of the staff report. So it seems like in some ways community has been aware of this and has engaged. So I'm glad to see that there's some comments here with regards to that. So while there may have not been community meetings, engagement is happening. We're hearing from people. We know this program of billboards on Sunset is going to be challenging, and I just appreciate the acknowledgement from staff that there was, maybe something that wasn't seen that we can learn from in this instance. And what I'm really glad more than anything in this relocation effort is that the city is getting something from this. There's real community benefits coming back with this program that haven't existed. And if we were to leave this or deny this request, what we would effectively have is an existing tall wall with no community benefits that is obstructed, that is providing a less good deal to the developers who have provided tremendous community benefit to West Hollywood for years in other ways, and now we can finally get something from this opportunity. I think that's really what I see here on the table in a big way. And as somebody who lives and walks that area of Sunset, I'm glad that that wall won't be obstructed, but will instead be a continuous sort of visual, enhancement on that building in the long run. I don't think I have any other questions. I had concerns about that 19 feet on the east-facing side. That's going to no longer be anything. The idea that it's just sort of left blank and maybe undimmed, it's hard for me to see that as a good thing in the long run. I don't want to push for expanded square footage on that space, but knowing that it's dead space anyways to the ad. I'm just curious, was there any consideration about not leaving those 19 feet on that side blank and just having, a challenging sort of ad placement that we have to deal with instead?
No,
This is part
we
of
were
it.
aware of the size, and it would even be bigger then, so.
But it is possible if we wanted to require that be a solid color or something like that, so that way it's not just a blank wall, then we could certainly add a condition.
Yeah, I think that something to that effect would make sense, something that could sort of blend in with the side, in a better visual way. That's my only concern, and it sounds like you're on it, so thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah. So my biggest concern was the lighting and the potential impact of the lighting on neighboring properties, but you've addressed that to my satisfaction, and I thank you for doing that. I want to reiterate what Councilmember Byers said. The current sign doesn't produce any public benefit or any revenue for the city. The extension of the existing sign will now produce revenue for the community. I know Councilmember Meister indicated that she didn't think it was a good deal, but we have adopted a policy of using an outside expert so that we have some basis for the financial requests that we make during these negotiations, and that we're treating all property owners in a fair way based on the value of the signage. So I'm comfortable, based on your representation, that this is what that outside entity has indicated the value of the sign, and that the value the city should be recouping. So I'm supportive of this, and I want to thank you and thank the applicant for bringing it forward.
Any other comments? My comments have already been addressed, so let's go ahead and move forward to a vote.
Mayor Shine?
Yes.
If you wanted to add the condition about the coloring that side of the wall, we
Yes.
should read some language into the record.
Yes.
The blank space.
Yes, let's please read the language into the record for the blank space.
Is that part of the motion?
Yes, that would be part of my motion to approve it, as well as staff's recommendation. And who's going to read the language?
I think Brian will.
Brian,
close the
okay,
public
great.
hearing.
Sounds good.
This will be condition 3.16 on the conditional use permit. The portion of the east wall that does not contain the tall wall image shall be painted a solid color distinguishable from the primary colors used on the advertising campaign in the allowed signed area.
The motion passes, noting the no vote of Councilmember Meister.
All right, we will now hear public hearing item 3I, an ordinance of the City of West Hollywood amending Title 19 of the West Hollywood Municipal Code, enhancing the city's enforcement authority for unlawful vacation, short-term rentals, and finding the action to be exempt from CEQA. The public hearing is now open. Madam City Clerk, how was this hearing noticed?
As required by law, Mayor.
Will the staff representative please introduce yourself and present the staff report?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. My name is Vito Adamitis. I'm the city's Neighborhood and Business Safety Manager. I am joined tonight by Danny Rivas, our Director of Community Safety, and Lauren Langer, our City Attorney. There is also staff from our Planning and Development Services Department and Rent Stabilization Division for any questions that the council may have. The item before you tonight is a proposed ordinance amending the city's vacation rental ordinance, which is housed in Title 19 of the West Hollywood Municipal Code and stems from a city council direction prior this year to explore ways to enhance enforcement efforts related to short-term rentals. The city's Planning Commission previously heard this item on May 18th and unanimously supported the proposed amendments before you this evening. In addition, on page 5 of your staff report packet, you will see some additional comments provided by the Planning Commission for council consideration. This included also a review of the city's administrative fee schedule, fine schedule. These amendments before you tonight, the 6 amendments before you tonight, is consistent with council's prior direction and includes the following. Number 1, expanding the definition of prohibitions on advertisements to include individuals who falsely advertise a vacation rental within the city but are actually located outside the city. Number 2, imposing liability to hosting platforms that complete booking transactions for vacation rentals within the city. Number 3, expanding and clarifying that enforcement options include, but are not limited to, administrative penalties, civil and criminal prosecution. Number 4, establishing that persons who violate the West Hollywood Municipal Code sections are responsible for reimbursing the city and any law enforcement agencies for investigative costs and requiring retroactive payment on all transit occupancy taxes known as TOT to the city. Number 5, creating a private right of action for individuals to bring suit against hosts in violation of the city's ordinance. And finally, number 6, authorize administrative subpoenas in order to ensure compliance. Of the 6 proposed ordinance amendments before you, I would like to highlight number 2, which imposes liability to hosting platforms that complete booking transactions for vacation rentals within the city. Staff and the city attorney's office have worked closely to impose liability to the extent they believe the law permits. That is, staff does not believe that the city can impose liability against the hosting platforms for the actual posting and advertising of an unlawful rental, nor does staff believe that the city can impose liability for a hosting platform failure to monitor or edit such unlawful postings on their websites due to certain protections afforded to them under the Federal Communications Decency Act passed in 1996. However, staff with the city attorney's office is confident to be able to hold accountable hosting platforms for processing what is known as quote-unquote booking transactions and accepting the quote-unquote booking fees associated with unlawful vacation rentals. I'd like to just share quickly for the City Council what the fines would look like for an advertisement with a listed rental price. Let's say we find a short-term rental that's rented, that's listed for $300 a night for a minimum of 3 nights. Under the city's existing fine schedule, there's a $75 administrative fee. The first offense for such a short-term rental would be 400% of the advertised rate. That is, the total number of nights multiplied by the actual daily night. So in that $300 example, it would be $900. $300 a night times the 3, which is the minimum rental period that they asked for. That first offense would be 400% of that, or $3,675. It increases on the second offense to 600% of the advertised rate, which would bring it to $5,475. And the third offense would go to 800% of that advertised rate, which would be $7,275. The sum total of those fines after the third offense is $16,425. We believe that that sends an important message as far as what these short-term rentals are causing in our community and what we're trying to accomplish in the way of compliance. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Do my colleagues have any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you so much. How long does it take to collect on these fines? Like, what's the process? So let's say you find Joe, you fine him 400%, it's however much that was. On Monday, when are we looking at actually getting that money back? Because I think that's always the collective fine issue.
I'll hop right in, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson. So once a citation is issued, there will be a notice that goes out to the responsible party, and it reiterates, right, the fact that they were just issued a citation. Then they're giving about 22 days to make payment or to contest the citation. If they haven't contested the citation, then at that point, if they haven't paid, you have a 50% penalty fee of the balance of the citation that's then applied at that point. In addition to that, you'll have a secondary notice that goes out after 55 days from the date that the citation was issued. Same process, however, that 50% penalty now just doubled to 100%. And so you essentially will have, at that point, 150% more than what the total balance is owed on a citation. And then at that point, that is when we send it off to our debt collection agency, and then we look at other potential legal remedies in terms of recovering that process. So it does kind of vary, but technically, during that process, right, I'd say after about 60 days, we'll start that recovery process.
And are you're finding the individual, not the landlord?
No, we actually will address the landlord first, typically through a notice of violation before we issue a fine. And then that triggers communication from the property owner, right? The property owner, typically, they will contact the code enforcement officer, and then they will share maybe the tenant's information if they do in fact know the unit specifically, right, that's being advertised. But in some cases, we don't know what unit, and you have several units, and so we address it to the landlord. The landlord will always be kept in that communication, but if they do supply voluntarily the tenant's information, then we will also hold the tenant responsible.
What happens if it's the landlord doing it?
If it's the landlord, then
The fines increase if it's a landlord because they're clearly not renting out their units and they're just rather Airbnb-ing them or whatever it is. Is there a different schedule for the landlord versus the tenant? I mean, I know during the pandemic, I heard from one individual in the community who, and we've talked about this individual, rented out her apartment and, got caught, stopped, and, there was that, right? And she was trying to survive, right? I understand that. And then we also know of cases, some of which I'm sure we'll hear in public comment tonight, of landlords actively, willfully doing it. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this, but a delineation of fines for a renter versus a landlord is something I'm interested in. I don't know the will of my colleagues there, but I don't know how you would even enforce something like that or if it's even enforceable. But that's just my general questions for you. I didn't know if there was a difference, but it sounds like no, and that's fine as well.
All right, any other questions from my colleagues at all?
I just have one. It's noted that this is an aggressive fee schedule. I think it's appropriate, but aggressive was the used word and the word used in the staff report. We're not just coming up with this out of thin air. Other cities are doing similar fee schedules and maybe even more aggressive than ours. Is that something you're finding?
Actually, the 400, 600, and 800% approach is unique and specific to our city. My understanding is there are not any other cities throughout the state of California that apply that. We've actually had an opportunity to present that through the California Association of Code Enforcement Officers, and we've been approached by different cities, but because of the significant increase that can be applied, a lot of cities end up choosing not to adopt that type of fine schedule. And instead, we do have a separate fine schedule for those short-term rental cases that we're unable to acquire the evidence that we need to prove that there's an advertised rental rate in the formula that Vito had just described. So in that case, we would apply the $1,000, right, for first offense, $2,500 for the second, and then $5,000 for the third. That's more in line with what you're seeing in other cities, but the 400, 608% is unique to West Hollywood.
So we're taking this very seriously here. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have public commenters on this? Well, we're going to receive comment from any persons in the audience who wish to speak on this matter. Each person may address the City Council for a maximum of 2 minutes, and if you haven't already, please submit your speaker slip to the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have 4 individuals in chambers. Our first one is Tori Funk, to be followed by Raphael Gamon. And if I mispronounced that, I apologize.
Good evening, Mayor Shine and council members. My name is Tori Funk. I am a researcher and policy analyst at Better Neighbors Los Angeles. As you may already know, Better Neighbors is a coalition of tenants, hotel workers, housing advocates, all with the shared goal of advocating for the passage of and enforcement of short-term rentals regulations in Southern California. Prior to working at Better Neighbors, I actually worked as an eviction defense advocate at a local legal aid organization. During this time, I spoke to countless tenants that were both in West Hollywood and Los Angeles that were facing eviction because their landlord wanted to convert their unit into a short-term rental because they knew they could make more money. In addition to facing eviction threat, these tenants mourned the loss of community caused by the proliferation of short-term rentals. They missed knowing the people that they live next to. They missed being around people who have equal stake in their community. Once I started working at Better Neighbors, I came to realize that the issues that these tenants were facing stem not only from bad landlords and short-term rental platforms, but also cities' inability to enforce our short-term rental regulations. The proposed amendments will probably allow West Hollywood to better enforce their ordinance by expanding the definition of prohibitions, by providing a private right of action, and by holding platforms accountable. However, these amendments will do nothing if the city does not enforce these amendments. So it's important for city staff to actually enforce these and listen to impacted residents who are reporting illegal short-term rentals, because a lot of people will not have the resources to pursue legal action on their own. So I urge you to pass the amendments, but also hold the city accountable for utilizing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Our next speaker is Raphael Gamon, to be followed by Mary Kate Leibman.
Good evening, Council. I'm in West Hollywood more than half of my life, I realized earlier. So, in January 23, we reached out to code officers about the illegally established Airbnb units in our RSO protected dwelling. At first, your code enforcement officers dismissed our concerns as unsubstantial. At that time, we provided evidence that Hiller Associates had illegally established rental businesses in West Hollywood where SDRs are forbidden. They bluntly listed on multiple rental platforms. Trying to ticket $1 billion platform is silly. You ticket the landlord. Code did open a file on our issue in February, but closed it down in 23 in March. Please read it. There's merely a fraction mentioned about the 15 times we called them and provided evidence. They knew that these files were closed in April when Danny Rivas and Vito Adomadi sat in my flat and told us, the tenant association, to our faces, they were on top of it and they cared. They lied then and they're still lying about it. In April this year, some of the honorable council members joined us in a Zoom meeting and promised, knowing that the case had been closed, that they would be following up, promised us oversight. It did not happen. The existing laws are sufficient on the books already to close down any illegal business in an RSO apartment building in West Hollywood. They're just not enforcing it. The amendments you are proudly presenting to be adapted today are not seriously effective if the people sworn to protect the citizens are not enforcing the laws on the books already. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raphael. Mary Kate Leibman, to be followed by Edith Magon.
Good Good evening, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Edith, can you lower the mic so it's closer?
Sure,
to you?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I also reside in the same building as Mr. Gamon. I have personally reached out to code enforcement no less than 15 times with the listing, with video evidence, and our testimony to what was going on in our building. I have since placed a request for records relating to this case and have yet to hear back from the city with regards to that. That was over 2 weeks ago, as we had learned that these cases were closed. I appreciate these amendments being made, but if code enforcement is not going to take seriously the reports that already exist, how can we be assured that things are going to be acted upon? In our case, our landlord knowingly engaged in illegal activity and saw the fines as merely a cost of doing business, provided he even was fined. So we urge the City Council to adopt these amendments, and I hope that they also include holding the platform liable in spite of Section 230. If you don't challenge the broad scope of Section 230 with laws like this, then why even bother? Because Santa Monica has shown that it is possible and it has been upheld on appeal. So I hope that City Council keeps that part of the provision intact. Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
Our final speaker this evening on this item is Edith Magon. Okay, I don't see Edith coming forward, so we can move forward, Mayor.
I think Edith just spoke. That was Mary Kate. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question for the city attorney.
Sure.
Thank you. Lauren, the last speaker talked about Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica, and that they have challenged the platform. Can you speak about that?
Yes, the reason that we chose some of the language in this ordinance is because it's been upheld by the courts in cases in Santa Monica and San Francisco. So it seems to be a pretty solid approach, given the restrictions in federal law that we can't treat them as publishers. We want to go after the booking transaction and the collecting money for the illegal activity. That seems to be a defensible approach to enforcing against illegal short-term rentals.
The public testimony is finished?
Yes,
Okay.
we can close the public testimony portion of the public hearing.
Yes, okay, so let's go ahead and move to council deliberations.
Thank you, Mayor. There's one section that I want you to look at the language of, section 19.36.331. There was just something in that I made a note. I don't have it right in front of me. I'd have to pull it up on my computer, but it said something about charging at that time.
Let me see.
Do you have it in front of you, John?
It says, hosting platforms shall not complete any booking transaction for any vacation rental in the city at the time the hosting platform receives the fee for the booking transaction?
Yeah.
Is that the language?
It was the at the time language that didn't make sense to me. Can't we just say if they receive a fee? I was worried that somebody would say, well, we didn't charge it at that time, that we charged it at a later date.
Well, I think it's written that way because what constitutes a booking transaction is the let's see. It shall mean any reservation or payment service provided between a prospective visitor and host.
Melissa, Lauren, what page are you on?
So I am on page 2 of 5 of the ordinance.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
In section C. I think the concept is the booking transaction and collecting the fee are what is the full transaction that is illegal.
Right, but they don't have to be contemporaneous with one another. So that's why I wanted to change that language to say and or if or something like that. Yeah, I think if would work.
Yeah, I think if, I'm fine with if. I think that makes more sense if I read it, it's clearer.
If the hosting platform receives a fee?
Yeah.
If?
If.
Yeah, I think that works. So you,
And then my other comment is thank you for bringing this forward. I agree with the public sentiment that none of this is really worthwhile unless we're actually committing to enforce. And there's one other thing that I would like you to look at. We can't do it tonight, but there are apartment buildings throughout the city that are, I don't know, overrun with realtor lockboxes. And those are not things that are being used by apartment dwellers. They're being used to facilitate these kind of short-term rentals. So I think we need to either come up with a mechanism to identify those buildings and go after them, or we need to make it illegal to use those on residential apartment buildings. They are used for the sale of real property, but they're not being used for sale when there are 15 of them on an apartment building. So I'd like you to look at that and investigate whether that is something that we could address.
Actually, Councilmember Meister had her.
Thank you, and I'm really glad that Councilmember Howman brought that up. I'm good with all of the additions that are being proposed. I just wanted to. I seem to be coming with little things here, but I happened to do a search in West Hollywood. There's a website called West Hollywood Vacation Rentals, and where you can search West Hollywood vacation homes. And not only are there a number of houses from single-family homes, but there are also a number of units from, for example, 9001 Santa Monica Boulevard. And they give a monthly fee, but it doesn't talk about that there's a year lease, because on the apartments, there's supposed to be a year lease, and there's nothing about that. Plus, they're under vacation rentals, which makes you think that they're not looking to lease it for a year. To add on to what Councilmember Howman said, I think that first of all, I think the 30 or 31-day minimum on single-family homes and condos isn't working. We're seeing houses being rented for weekends or just a week, and they end up being, used as vacation rentals or as party houses. So, and our neighborhoods are not neighborhoods anymore. And so I think that we have to look at changing that minimum, extending that minimum lease period for single-family homes and condos as well. And I know that there were objections from the real estate industry. They had concerns, I should say, that sometimes people sell their house and then they stay in it for a while. I mean, I think that we can carve out exceptions or exemptions for those kinds of situations. I think that's easy enough to do. Then the other issue is luxury apartment buildings coming online and not being clear about the lease requirement. And so there are like a ton of units from 9001 Santa Monica Boulevard, which, or better known as the Palm Project, listed on this vacation rental website. And again, nowhere does it say that there's a minimum one-year lease. It just gives a monthly rental. And that project and other mixed-use projects were given double bonuses to provide housing. They were given state bonuses, they were given city bonuses, mixed-use bonuses, and yet these units are being marketed as vacation rentals. And I think it's just a slap in our face. And I think that we need to somehow find a way to address that as well. Thank you.
May I, Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. I agree with all that's been said, and the one thing that I was thinking about and how we could think about enforcement, because I've been trying to think in the research, it's like 600 units on Airbnb if you go online and do it. I actually would like a report back from code compliance. It can be quarterly on the enforcement mechanisms and how you are actually doing on this item, because I think we need to evaluate what tools that we have as a council. I know that there's stuff in the budget that we're talking about with proactive code enforcement. However, this is a very specific issue as it takes a lot of time out of code's time when they're doing everything else. And I know I say that with a grain of salt because you get asked to do everything, as Danny and Vito know all too well. However, I would like to have a report back so that way we can see, the public can see, and that way we can have some accountability as the leaders as well as the people that need to sit there and say if more money is needed for this, if a new division of the city is needed for Airbnb enforcement, if something needs to happen in code that requires a mid-year budget next time after this budget conversation. I think this is something that we really do need to tackle. I know myself, I know the mayor, and I think all of my colleagues have been saying there needs to just be prioritized people in code that do this a majority of their time, because clearly there's money to be made on the other side, and with this aggressive fine structure, there's money to be fined on these people, and sadly, people are abusing it. And I think the lack of enforcement, whatever, and however you want to define that, is being overrun by the landlords in that way, or whoever is doing it. So if my colleagues are amenable to it, I would love to see every 4 months or quarterly, however you want to do it, because I don't want that to be a burden on you to then not be doing this, right? But I would like to see the numbers of the timing of when things happen, especially like in the summer. We all know, as the Councilmember Meister was saying, people might rent something for Pride and come out or do something like that. And then Danny, I had a question, but does Los Angeles do or have any accountability here? Because it seems like they are a player, whether the city of Los Angeles, but we are the victim, because there are people that are coming and renting out so-and-so's house, right? And then saying, oh, don't go there, come up the street across Fountain or wherever they are, and that's in LA. Have we been able to communicate with them? What are they saying to us? They don't have much on the books regardless, but what are our options there?
Yeah, so we did meet with the city of Los Angeles, and their planning department actually is where their short-term rental kind of licensing program and compliance program is housed under. And so because they do have an agreement, they're a lot different from our perspective because they allow short-term rentals. And so they have a pretty robust licensing program when it comes to that. So aside from us establishing, like we did, a point of contact, so when we learn of issues such as these that are being reported by tenants, now we are forwarding that information on over to them in terms of providing that listing. And then my understanding from what they've shared is then they communicate with Airbnb or another platform, hosting platform, and then those advertisements are supposed to be removed and taken down. Aside from that, from what they've shared, my understanding is they're not levying any sort of fines or anything towards property owners or tenants, aside from maybe sending like a notice of violation. But then again, they really rely wholeheartedly on communicating to the platforms and then having the listings removed. And according to them, based off our meeting, that's been effective for them.
Sure. That's all my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Byers.
I just wanted to say, sort of more for the public, I know I've been getting DMs of people sharing, if you see something, say something, sort of thing happening in a big way around this, people in their buildings. And just want to say, for the folks who feel like there's nothing happening, certainly continue to share what you're seeing. We're relaying it onto code enforcement. We're going to continue to be that pipeline. I hope, if anything, this conversation is proving that we're getting more tools in our toolbox to deal with this in a big way. But just for those folks who have been sending the DMs and the emails and tracking the listing and being the detectives in our community on this case for a long time, I want to just appreciate you in a big way and say stick with this. Now that we have more tools, this will be really exciting. So for the public, not for you all, but thank you, staff, too.
Thank you. And I also want to say that this item and does give us a lot more tools to be able to hold these platforms more accountable, and that's really, really important. So I'm really proud that we have this before us. As far as, I agree with Councilmember Byers, really, definitely, well, I agree with everything everybody said, but keep letting us know, because you are the eyes in your buildings, and we will continue to now, should this pass tonight, have greater power, and will continue to do